The Book of Enoch talks about some strange creatures that were made by fallen angels. Today we're going to talk about those creatures. It's not just the Nephilim giants that were made. There were other weird creatures too, a mix of humans and animals. Here's what happened. The Book of Enoch says that 200 watchers, who were these angels, messed around with humans and animals to make these freaky hybrids. They did it with 200 donkeys, 200 rams, 200 goats, and 200 of every other kind of animal, even birds. This caused a lot of bad things to happen. Violence, really weird stuff, and they made these scary creatures. They messed things up so much that they created giants and monsters. So when we read the Book of Enoch and it talks about giants and monsters, it means there were a bunch of different hybrids made back then. But I really want to highlight what it means when these angels gathered these animals for miscegenation. This means they were doing something with reproduction, mixing up different kinds of creatures. The fallen angels used animal and maybe even human DNA to make these strange beings. People have talked about these weird creatures for ages, but most just think it's made up like a story. But what if it's actually true? The Bible says that during Noah's time, there were these creatures called the Nephilim who weren't fully human and caused a lot of trouble for everyone. Let's go back in time and check out some of the most fascinating half-human, half-animal creatures from history. In Greek stories, there's this creature called a centaur. They're like a mix of a horse and a person, living in the mountains of Thessaly and Arcadia. Maybe these centaurs were kinda like what the Watchers were messing around with in the Book of Enoch. That's how Greek tales say these creatures came to be. The centaurs were said to be born from a human named Ixion and a spirit named Nephili. Ixion was like their dad, and Nephili was a kind of spiritual being. Sound familiar? In the story, Nephili pretended to be Hera, the wife of Zeus, to see if Ixion would fall for her. And he did. He ended up having babies with Nephili, and those babies were the centaurs. It's a lot like the story of the fallen angels mixing up different creatures through reproduction. And by the way, miscegenation literally means reproduction through intimate relations. In Greek mythology, there are creatures called sirens that are half human and half animal. While many think of sirens as mermaids, in Greek stories, they're actually part bird, part human. According to the Book of Enoch, certain angels mix the genes of 200 birds and humans, creating hybrid creatures. Ancient Egypt also mentions these hybrid beings, making it a famous place in tales about them. When we study the ancient Egyptian writings, like hieroglyphs, we see gods like Thoth, who's the god of writing, wisdom, and magic. Thoth is shown with a bird head and a human-like body. Horus, another god, looks similar. In fact, many Egyptian gods are a mix of animals and humans. This makes me wonder, were these hybrid creatures worshipped as gods in ancient Egypt? I think it's possible. Maybe the creatures made by the fallen angels, who mixed different beings together, were seen as gods too. Perhaps they even shared the advanced spiritual knowledge with their offspring, making them seem like divine beings themselves. We need to understand that angels who disobeyed God wanted people to worship them as gods. They got kicked out of heaven and came to earth. Some people worshipped them and their children like gods. Maybe some of these creatures are still around today. That's why some folks claim to have seen strange beings like the Mothman. Mothman is a well-known creature in West Virginia folklore, said to have been seen in the Point Pleasant area from November 15, 1966 to December 15, 1967. This creature, which resembles a combination of a giant moth and a man, got its name because of its unique appearance. The first reported sighting occurred in mid-November 1966, when two young couples from Point Pleasant, West Virginia, claimed to have encountered a terrifying creature in the woods. They described it as mostly human-like, but with some distinct features. It had enormous 10-foot wings and glowing red eyes. The couples were so frightened that they ran to the sheriff to report what they had seen. Mysterious beings believed to exist but not yet proven are called cryptids, and sightings of these cryptid creatures have been reported worldwide. It's important to note that these creatures all share a common trait. They mostly look like hybrids. This similarity led me to compare them to the hybrids described in the Book of Enoch. The Bible, in Genesis 6:4, also mentions that these biblical hybrids existed both before and after the Great Flood. This verse suggests that these cryptid creatures might still exist because they survived the flood. The flood was meant to get rid of these abominations, not just humans. God knew that to cleanse the earth, he had to remove all corruption. These creatures are considered abominations. God didn't intend for them to exist, which is why most were wiped out, though we still see traces of them today. It's not as bad as it used to be in ancient times. Back then, these hybrid creatures were terrifying people. They're even talked about in the Book of Enoch as evil beings. The spirits of these hybrids who died in the flood are now what we call demons. That might explain why demonic creatures like Baphomet look like a mix of human and animal. Come to think of it, most demons shown are some kind of mix between a human and an animal, often like a combination of a bull and a person. Share your thoughts about this segment in the comments section below. We appreciate hearing your opinions and insights. This brings us to the end of this video. Thank you for watching and for your continued support. If you found this content interesting and would like to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your engagement and feedback mean a lot to us, so don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to never miss an update. Thank you again, and we look forward to sharing more exciting content with you soon.